You wake up one day, and everything feels different. The world isn't the same as it used to be. The news is heavy, the pace is relentless, and the comfort zones we once leaned on feel like they're slipping away. It's easy to feel like you're drowning in change, losing sight of what's steady. But here's the truth you need to hear. You are more adaptable, more resilient, and more powerful than the chaos around you. Today, we're going to talk about how to hold on to optimism, real, grounded, soul-level optimism, in a world that never stops shifting beneath your feet. This isn't about blind positivity. It's about training your mind and heart to anchor into what matters, even as the tides of life continue to turn. Let's begin. You see, most people are terrified of change because they were raised to believe that comfort equals safety. But what if that's not true? What if clinging to what's familiar is the very thing holding us back from becoming who we're meant to be? The problem isn't the change. It's our resistance to it. Life evolves, people shift, circumstances unfold in ways we didn't ask for. But the most resilient, the most fulfilled among us, are the ones who choose to grow with it instead of fighting against it. They see change not as a threat but as an invitation. An invitation to shed what no longer fits, to question old beliefs, to rediscover purpose. When you stop trying to control the uncontrollable, something beautiful happens. You start to adapt. You start to innovate. You start to lead, not just react. And that leadership begins inside you. It begins with asking different questions. Not, how do I stop this from changing? But, how do I become the kind of person who can thrive no matter what changes? That's the difference. That's what keeps us optimistic, knowing that even in the chaos, we are capable of choosing growth, of choosing to become. We lose hope when we feel like everything is out of our hands. That's the mental trap. It makes us think we're passengers in our own story. But we're not. The human brain craves agency. It needs to feel like it matters, like its decisions make a difference. When the world feels too big or overwhelming, the smartest thing you can do is zoom in. Find the smallest, simplest action that brings you clarity, or kindness, or momentum. Maybe it's the way you start your morning. Maybe it's how you speak to yourself when you mess up. Maybe it's the courage to say no when something doesn't feel right. These micro-decisions, they build the architecture of optimism. They remind your mind that you're still the one driving. That's where energy comes from. That's where confidence grows. When you take ownership of even the smallest part of your day, you're no longer a victim of the world's unpredictability. You're an active participant, shaping the tone of your life one conscious choice at a time. Everything we consume influences how we think, how we feel, how we act. And yet, we rarely pause to audit what we're feeding our minds. Imagine trying to stay hopeful while surrounding yourself with constant negativity. News that dramatizes, social feeds that compare, conversations that drain. It's like trying to stay healthy while eating junk every day. Your mindset is a result of your environment. If you want to be more optimistic, then optimism must be built into your daily inputs. What you listen to, what you watch, the people you allow to speak into your life. These are the architects of your emotional state. You don't have to eliminate all negativity. That's unrealistic. But you do have to be conscious. You have to be intentional. Ask yourself, does this inspire me or exhaust me? Does this help me grow or keep me stuck? Start making small adjustments. Follow people who speak truth with hope. Read things that expand your thinking. Create boundaries that protect your peace. When you take control of your inputs, you begin to reprogram how your brain processes uncertainty. And that's not fluff. That's neuroscience. The more you feed it direction and hope, the more it knows how to look for possibility instead of problems. That is how you train your mind to support your optimism instead of sabotaging it. Pain is a teacher, but we've been conditioned to silence it, to numb it, to bury it under layers of productivity and distraction. What we miss is that our most painful moments are often the very things that shape our deepest character. Struggle refines us. Loss reveals what truly matters. Disappointment clears the path for better alignment. Optimism isn't pretending things are okay when they're not. It's standing in the fire and choosing to believe that something good can still come from it. That's a radically different mindset. Turns suffering into purpose. When you reflect on the most difficult seasons of your life, chances are those moments transformed you more than the easy ones ever could. But that only happens when you lean in. When you stop asking why me and start asking what now? What is life trying to build in me through this experience? That is the heart of sustainable optimism. Not blind faith, but a fierce commitment to growth through every single chapter. Human beings are social creatures. We're biologically wired to connect, to belong, to feel seen and supported. And yet, so many of us carry the weight of relationships that feel more like obligations than sources of strength. We hold on to people who make us doubt ourselves, diminish our voice, or drain our energy, because we've known them forever, because letting go feels like failure, because we're afraid of being alone. But the truth is, the quality of your relationships shapes the quality of your mindset. You cannot stay optimistic in an environment that constantly undermines your worth. The people you surround yourself with should not only accept who you are but champion who you're becoming. It's not about perfection, it's about alignment. You deserve conversations that challenge your thinking without shaming your growth. You deserve relationships that remind you of your courage, especially when you forget. Find the ones who lean in when you're struggling, the ones who celebrate your joy without competing. That kind of support is oxygen to optimism. When you're rooted in authentic connection, the world feels less daunting. And if you haven't found that yet, be that for someone else. Create what you need. Optimism becomes real when it's shared. Gratitude is one of the most powerful tools for building resilience, and yet, it's one of the most misunderstood. It's not about pretending everything is fine. It's about choosing to recognize what is still good, still working, still beautiful, even when things are hard. Gratitude doesn't minimize pain. It balances it. It shifts your attention from what's missing to what's present. And that shift changes your brain. It rewires your neural pathways to default toward appreciation, rather than scarcity or fear. Think about the power in that. When you practice gratitude daily, you create internal proof that not everything is broken. And that evidence builds trust in yourself, in others, in the future. Start simple. 3 moments of gratitude before bed. A thank you message to someone who impacted you. A mental note during a difficult day, acknowledging something small that made you smile. These aren't just nice habits, they're radical acts of emotional leadership. Gratitude turns the chaos down just enough for you to hear your own strength again. One of the greatest sources of discontent in life comes from chasing a version of success that was never truly yours to begin with. Somewhere along the line, we adopted someone else's definition. Achievement meant status, happiness meant appearance, fulfillment meant approval. But as life unfolds, those old definitions start to feel hollow. The metrics that once motivated you no longer satisfy you. And that's not failure, that's evolution. Growth requires a redefinition of what matters. It requires the courage to step back and ask, what does success look like to me now? Maybe success today means peace of mind. Maybe it's having the freedom to choose how you spend your time. Maybe it's nurturing deep, meaningful relationships, or finally having the strength to walk away from things that don't align with your values. Redefining success isn't about lowering the bar. It's about raising your standard for what truly fulfills you. It's about trading shallow validation for deep purpose. And the moment you do that, something shifts. You stop running someone else's race. You start living with intention. That clarity fuels optimism, because you're no longer measuring your life against someone else's scoreboard. You're creating a game worth playing, one that reflects who you really are. Hope isn't found in the present moment. It's created by the vision you carry for the future. When we lose sight of where we're going, we lose the motivation to move forward. The most powerful people aren't the ones who have it all figured out. They're the ones who refuse to give up on the idea that something better is still possible. You need a vision that's bigger than your fear, something that pulls you forward when life tries to push you down. And that vision doesn't need to be grand or dramatic. It just needs to be honest. What do you want your life to feel like? What kind of impact do you want to leave behind? What kind of legacy are you quietly building in your daily choices? Vision gives meaning to struggle. It gives direction to chaos. When you anchor yourself in a future you believe in, you create the emotional momentum needed to stay hopeful, even when the world doesn't make it easy. That's not fantasy. That's leadership. That's optimism in action.